It was a Sunday morning. We didn't go to church there that Sunday, but we heard a loud noise and people screaming in the streets, and we got up to go outside to see what was going on. And by word of mouth, because there were so many people in the street and the fire trucks and stuff, we finally found out that there was a bomb in the basement of the church. I believe it was in the basement, and that four little girls were killed. That they was in church for Sunday school, and that the church was bombed. They were killed. And my first experience with, I guess, racism directed toward me was I want to say I was in seventh or eighth grade. My mom gave me money to go buy me a pair of shoes, and this little grocery store that sold everything that we were in every week. And they knew who I was, and they would not wait on me. And I sat there for an hour or longer, and this white lady comes in. She gets waited on. She tries on shoes, and everything's hunky dory, and they just leave me sitting there. So I got up and got the shoes myself, and that was not the right thing to do. The little old lady came back and chewed me out. She didn't call me any names or anything. She just told me that I was out of my place, that I should wait, And I'm like, do I wait all day? Nobody's back here. I'm the only one here. And she said she was going to tell my grandfather that I was being disrespectful and sassy. And because I tried the shoe on, even though the size I got didn't fit, I had to buy it because it was considered tainted because a black person had had it on. So that made me really angry because to me, I'm human. I'm a human being just like you are. And the only reason you're treating me this way is because of the color of my skin. Thomasville is a little small town, probably about 15 miles from where I grew up. That's where the doctor's offices were. That's where the hospitals were. And you had a waiting room for the white people. You had a waiting room for the black people. And the waiting room for the whites got waited on first. No matter how sick you were or how desperate the situation was, they waited on first, and then the doctors would come over and wait on the black side. I was angry child because it was all wrong. And my grandparents and my family did not teach us to be that way. Every God made us all. We're all human beings. And just because your skin's lighter than mine or my skin's darker than yours does not mean you're better than I am. So that was, it bothered me, and it still bothers me today because I wasn't raised that way. My grandfather was a minister. I was raised in church. And my teaching was that God created us all. We're all one. The first school I went to was great. It was Animani, Alabama. My mother and pretty much everybody else, older, our parents, went to that same school. But that school was closed, I want to say in the late 60s. And then they built a school in Pine Hill. But it wasn't large enough for all of the kids because all of the kids in the surrounding area had to go to that school. So we had overcrowding. And there was a white school there, but only white kids was allowed to go to it. And we were not allowed to go there. So a lot of kids didn't go to school, dropped out of school because of that. But as a result of not being able to attend this white school, the school was burnt down. I don't know who did it. The rumor was it that the whites burned it down so that we wouldn't go. They couldn't go there. And as a result of that, in 1970, fall of 71, the students in that area, black students and teachers, decided to boycott the schools and march for the right to go to school wherever you wanted to because the segregation was supposed to be over with. But in the South, at that time, especially Alabama, they refused to abide by the law.
And who's they?
George Wallace, who was the governor, was very adamant. He turned around students at the University of Alabama. He refused to let them go. The black students entered the building. Two kids that I went to, I think they graduated a year before me in high school, but they were turned around. They were not allowed, and this was in the early 70s, and they were not allowed to go to the University of Alabama. And the football coach, I believe, Bear Bryant, said that a black well, he didn't use that word, would never be a quarterback at the University of Alabama. So racism was alive and well, even into the 70s. Every day, we got on school buses and went to Camden, Alabama, which was the county seat for Wilcox County. And we boycotted stores. We marched, tried to march to the courthouse. And each day we got turned around. And this went on for probably about 2 months, maybe. And finally, the Thursday before the arrest was made, they told us if we went to the courthouse or attempted to go to the courthouse that we would be put in jail. So that Friday, about 300 people, including myself, was arrested and taken to jail for attempting to march to the courthouse. And the purpose of going to the courthouse was to voice our opinions about the schools and everything else that was going on. And so they locked us up and put us in jail. And so I was in jail from Friday to Monday. Terrifying, because the guy who was our leader, Jose Williams, who marched with Dr. King, they told us they had killed him. And it was probably, I want to say maybe about 300 people. And they had the females on one side and the men on the other side. And we sang freedom songs, "We Shall Overcome." And they told us if we didn't be quiet, they was going to do this to us and that to us. And it was a horrible experience. I didn't sleep for 3 days, and I didn't eat for 3 days.
Why not?
Because I was afraid that they was going to put something in the food to kill us. Because I really believed when they said Jose Williams was dead that they had killed him. And our parents, they would let us out during the day into this like open yard in the back, and our parents would come over and visit, and they would bring us crackers and water or something to drink, and that was the food that I ate during that time period.
And so how did you all eventually get out?
On Monday, they finally let us out. We went to court. There's no record of it, which I just found out, because basically it was done illegally. They gave us a tablet where we had to write our name and age and address on it. And for some reason, those records can't be found. But it was a part of history, and it did happen. I feel like that it's because it's the South, you know, and especially the area I grew up in. It's called the Black Belt. It's still very rural, even now in 2018. The school system, I think, is okay. The school that I marched to have a right to sit down in classroom. I have 2 nephews that go to that school now, and that is an elementary school now. And there is in Camden, where we did the marching, Camden Academy is where all of the high school kids go. I have a niece and a nephew that's attending those schools now. That was the first time I've ever been in jail in my life. Don't plan on going back, but that it was for a good reason. It was for a good cause. That it's not ancient history. Even though my son said I was 66, but I'm actually 64 years old. And we just celebrated Dr. King was killed 50 years ago. And when you really stop and think about it, that really wasn't a long time ago. And yes, we've made a lot of headway. A lot of things has changed, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I think to sit down and have a serious conversation about racism and ways to make it go away forever is what's needed. I've heard people say it happened, let it go. It's over and done with. Well, it's not over and done with. It will never be over and done with, because people live through that. The struggle, the killings of family members, just multiple people being killed for no reason other than the fact that they're Black. And that's nothing you just get over.